Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome in, everyone, to episode 66 of Instigate Success, Building an ABA Franchise. I am your host, as always, Jake Schoen, aka Jakey Muffins, here for episode 66 of the weekly podcast for your Hoosier State Instigators. Again, every Friday night here at 9 p.m. Eastern. This week will probably be a little bit shorter than normal. Couple of reasons behind that. So obviously, there's the big fight that everybody's been waiting for, Tyson and Jake Paul. So that is thick on right now. Not that fight specifically, but the fights are on leading up to it. So I know a lot of people are probably watching that. And I also will be flying out in about 10 hours to Indiana. So I should start packing and such and get some stuff so I can get that all squared away and then get some sleep before I drive out to Orlando for that flight. So a couple of reasons why. So we'll preface that. But I will be there in person tomorrow for our next game. So our next game, that is tomorrow. It is, let me pull that graphic up here. It is tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Again at our new home venue, Best Choice Fieldhouse in Fishers, Indiana. You saw that promo here. Whenever we start any of our streams now, that is how we're going to start all of the streams now, with that flyover of the Best Choice Fieldhouse. So pretty cool to see that on all of our streams here. And to know that is our new home venue, again in Fishers, Indiana, for this season of ABA basketball, and hopefully longer than that. But this is going to be our third home game on the season for the Instigators. We had that home opener, season opener. We'll jump back to that graphic. And tomorrow we play the Kings, the Ohio Kings. Team we faced off against a few times last season, a very, very competitive team. And they are, a team that can score and score a lot, led by Cameron Mitchell. He averaged about 50 or so points a game last season. That is definitely going to be the key player in that matchup tomorrow, again at 7:30 p.m. at Best Choice Fieldhouse. But so our first game, the home opener, again, that was presented by the Stites family, one of our wonderful sponsors. That game was against the Louisville Pros. If you haven't had a chance to catch that game or any of our other games on season, you can catch all of them on our YouTube channel. So we do post all of our games a few days after over on our YouTube page with commentary and such. If you want to catch the games live, you can either come in person, you get your tickets. If you buy them online, you get a little bit of a discount. We also have some season ticket packages, not necessarily if you're looking you just only for that full season package, but we also have 3 and 5 game packages as well to help save an additional bit of money for the games. Even if you come out to one game, it's about $10. So get yourself a ticket for $10 if you buy it ahead online. You can buy tickets again right there at that website, www.apexofsports.com/tickets. But so that first home opener game, Saturday, October 26th, a few weeks ago, against the Louisville Pros, a team we faced off against a few times again as well last season. The Pros were victorious in 2 of those matchups, where the Instigators found themselves victorious in 1 of those matchups. So Pros had a 2-1 record against us going into that matchup. However, that home game, we were able to come out on top, largest margin of victory in that series, 124-106. The start in the game. I mean, it was, pros are always a competitive team, lots of back and forth. But the pros got off to a little bit of a better start than the Instigators, found themselves ahead after that first quarter. Instigators started to claw their way back, and Instigators, once came to that second half, really pulled things away, and that's how they got themselves out in front. And they held on to that lead, and wound up with a double-digit victory here against the Louisville Pros for that home opener game. First ever time starting off the season with a win. First time to start with a win for the home opener, season opener, and obviously that's our first time with a overall winning record. So lots for the Instigators and their fans to be excited here for that first game. Second game, we were going up against a familiar foe, an in-state rival, if you may say. The Indiana Legends. That was our first road game of the season. That was a couple of weeks ago. We got to play against the Indiana Legends on the road. And also, if you want to catch these games live and you're not able to make it out there in person, you can catch it here live on the Patreon. If you're watching this podcast here tonight live, thank you for being one of our loyal Patreon members and subscribers. So, Patreon subscribers do get exclusive access to live content such as this podcast here on Friday nights, as well as all of our game streams. So, you'll be able to have a live game stream. One thing that is a little bit different for this season compared to if you watched last season, our game streams are set up a little bit differently. You get a link. On that link, you'll have access to watch our exclusive live game feed from our AI camera. So that AI camera tracks the ball and it goes back and forth by itself. No cameraman needed. Last season we had a physical camera we had to go back and forth, and this time it's all AI. It tracks the ball, does it all for us. But that's what you'll be getting access to, so you get to watch that. Then a few days later, we'll put that on the YouTube with some added commentary and um, and graphics and such. But that is what we are doing here this season, season two, and that this stream it should be a little bit higher quality going into the games here. But that second game, so that second game was against the Indiana Legends. After that first game, the Instigators, we found ourselves ranked for the very first time. Power rankings by the ABA, we were the number 24 team. They normally put out the top 25, so this was the first time we were ever on that list. Big honor, something we look to keep on continuing to do and continue to move up in those ranks. So that second game jumped into against the Legends. We continued on the road there with a 145-117 victory. Again, things a little bit closer in that first half. Second half, we really kind of separated ourselves. So a little bit different compared to what we've seen the first season with the Instigators. That third quarter was really kind of the downfall. If you looked at all of our games overall, that third quarter is where we really struggled. So that is a little bit different because the second half of these games, we did pull out ahead. And continued to pull out ahead. So that was a pretty hefty margin of victory there. 145, 117. That is a 28-point victory, it looks like. So very good game for the Instigators. Again, against the Indiana Legends, a team we saw a few times last season, regular season, as well as in that play-in game. We did play against the Legends for the play-in game that we were able to secure a victory in. And as of right now, we are still undefeated against the Indiana Legends. So bragging rights for the state go to Hoosier State. But that put us up in the rankings to our highest ever ranking at the time. Uh, let's jump to that. Put us at number 16. Number 16 in the whole ABA, the Hoosier State Instigators going into week 3 or game 3 for the Instigators. Number 1 up on the top, you see there, Chicago Fury, defending champions. Also, one of the teams in our division. So, new divisions for the Instigators this year. We find ourselves in that central region still. However, we are in the black division compared to the red division from last year. In addition to the Fury, there's also another team there in the top 10 that is in our new division. That would be the Southland Saints. They are number 6. Again, these are after our week 2, game 2 for us. Um, it has the Saints there, 3-0. Same with the Fury, 3-0, and your Instigators, 16 at 2-0. So going into that third game, lots on the line here for the Instigators. We had that matchup against the Columbus Wizards. This will be their first game. This was this past weekend. First game for the Wizards, a very competitive team. That was a playoff team last year. I believe they won their division and made it into the regional finals. I believe they didn't make it out of the regional finals. Obviously, I think they lost to the Lions, if I remember correctly, which went on to play, or whom went on to play the Fury. And the Fury, obviously continued down that path and become the defending champions. So a team that is definitely one that we'll have to watch here throughout the season, and definitely up there as far as a team to watch in the playoffs. In addition, after that game 2 against the Legends, little bit of Instigators history was made. Our all-time scoring leader changed. AB Alex Brown, Hollywood, uh, jumped up to number 1 on the all-time scoring board for your Hoosier State Instigators, passing LaJuan Swish Whitney. High score for the Instigators last season. LaJuan, he had a ton of 3-pointers, the best 3-point shooting percentage as far as any Instigators in a season. I believe right around 50%, which is very impressive. But AB passed LaJuan for that title. Now on the heels of LaJuan is also Dylan Ware, another current player here on the Instigators. Um, One thing we did point out on the stream last week, Dylan pointed this out actually. AB does have the game advantage if you go by number of games played compared to either one of those two. AB also does lead in a couple of other categories, which you may expect from the 7-footer. He does lead in rebounds as well as blocks. So he is the all-time leader in 3 categories. And he also led the league in blocks last season. So hopefully that is something he can continue to keep up this year. As far as that league bragging rights, in the ABA. So that is again a little bit of Instigators history. Something cool to keep an eye on here as we progress throughout the season. So let's see. So now, we're on that home game stretch. Had that pros game, then we were just on the road against the Legends. Then we jumped into last week, we played the Columbus Wizards. We just released that game footage. If you hadn't seen that today, which is Friday, so if you're watching this on YouTube a few days after, um, you can go back and watch that on YouTube now. And if you're on the Patreon, you can go and watch that. We released that today on the YouTube channel. And while you're over on the YouTube, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the videos, and you'll get notified whenever we do release a new game video, a new podcast, anything anything and everything here as far as Instigators related content over on the YouTube channel if you're subscribed. So go ahead and do that. But the Wizards, that is going to kick off a 3-game home stretch for your Instigators here. Then we play again. This is going to be tomorrow, the Ohio Kings. And then the following week, playing the Pit Bulls. So 3-game home stretch here right before Thanksgiving, right before we get into the holiday festivities. We've got 3 home games for your Hoosier State Instigators. We have that 3-game package, so not a bad idea. If you're going to be going to all 3 of those games, get yourself that 3-game package. Or, you can get the 3-game package, go to the game tomorrow and the following week, and then save one for, the next holiday season coming up here next month. So you could do that as well. But that is our home games here before Thanksgiving. So this is, the really, really imminent games here on the schedule. So let's jump into that score from this past week. If you didn't catch it, the Instigators were out in front in the first quarter for the first time, out in front in the second quarter, out in front in the third quarter. But things started to claw their ways back for the Wizards there in that third quarter. And ultimately in the fourth quarter, the Wizards were able to get themselves out in front with a victory. Late in that game, the Wizards found themselves ahead. Final score 126 to 114. Wizards were on top of the Instigators in that game. First loss on the season for the Hoosier State Instigators brings them to 2-1 now, still with a winning record. And the Wizards start their season out 1-0 with a victory in their first game of the season. Um, Wizards, they really showed out, and they showed why you have to play a full 4 quarters against them. So that first quarter, second quarter, like I said, we were out in front in control of that game, double-digit lead for parts of that game. Third quarter, we saw the Wizards really start to claw their way back. Once they hit that fourth quarter, Wizards kind of flipped the script there, got themselves ahead, and once they got ahead, they continued to build on their lead. And some things piled up as far as kind of the key points that were a little bit different, maybe more to an extreme amount compared to the other games for the Instigators. Things that we kind of knew going into the week that we would have to continue to focus on is turnovers and fouls. Fouls, especially, I think, is the thing that really hurt us this past week. We had over 8 fouls, or we had 8 fouls in a quarter. So when we hit that point, then we're sending the other team to the free throw line. Free throw line, when you're down, that's where you can make things up, and that's where the Wizards were really able to find a way to get themselves back into that game, is continuing to get free throw opportunities and continuing to make those free throw opportunities. So that's something that we'd like to see improve a little bit here throughout the season, is for the defense to still be at the same intensity, but maybe just not as handsy, I guess is what you could say. But just to not get called for as many fouls. But that was this past week. That ultimately did knock the Instigators outside of the rankings. But we've got the whole season in front of us, so hopefully we can get some wins here rolled off again and get ourselves back into those power rankings. But I wouldn't be surprised either to see the Wizards in the power rankings once they get a few more games under their belt. They are a very competitive team. Again, they were in the playoffs, and a team that can make a run in the playoffs in the ABA postseason. So we'll share the screen. We'll take a look at the stats here for that game, and also take a look at the games from around the league, or at least in around the division for this past week. So let's jump over there and we see that. And so we've got from the beginning, we've went over these games already from October, November, this past weekend. On Saturday, we had the Wisconsin Frost taking on the Chicago Rebels. Frost out in front of that, 88 to 81, a little bit of a low scoring game for an ABA game. The Chicago Fury, defending champions, continued to find their way victorious, 118 to 115 against the Windy City Inferno. A couple of games here that I'm not sure, they may have gotten postponed, but no scores were reported for that. So that is my understanding. The Chicago Knights and the Midwest Monsters. That game, believe, did not take place. And then same with the Southland Saints and Lacrosse Showtime. And then our game there, the 126, 114. Wizards out in front. So we'll jump over here, take a look at the stats here. As I mentioned here in the first quarter, I saw the Instigators out in front 37-26. Close for the point differential there. In the second quarter, Instigators still out in front. That third quarter, though, again, that was our downfall in this first season. But that was really our first time in this second season to see that third quarter fall as such. But I mean, if you look at those point differential points per quarter, that really hurt us. That third quarter, only 18 points scored, but then defensively for the Wizards to get the 40 points there in the fourth, that is really the big difference maker. But we'll take a look here as far as Wizards stats. They had two key players. If you watch the game, you definitely noticed there was a couple of guys there that continuously were at the line and making their shots. So Jay Farrow, number 5, 38 points, 16 free throw attempts, knocked down 75% of those. So 12 of his points came from the free throw line, as well as Brandon Wilkins, 32 points there, and 10 of his points came from the free throw line. So double digits for both of those guys at the free throw line as far as points scored. That is, one of the key factors, I think, if you look at this scorecard from the past week. That is, something that definitely we'd like to change a little bit here in our next games. As far as your instigators, starters for this game, was a new starter here. Let's see, and it didn't get marked there, but the third guy, or the fifth guy, the fifth starter, that was Anthony Williams, making his debut as a Hoosier State instigator. He was voted on as the fans man. First time for him to be the fans man, and first time to be on the court for the regular season for the Hoosier State Instigators. He got to have the start at center and do the tip off. He won that tip off. So that is pretty cool. He was a guy that impressed us enough to make it onto the reserve squad, and then he's been on that fans man vote for a few weeks, and he won it this time. So it made him go from that reserve squad onto the active roster, and make his professional debut for the Hoosier State Instigators. So congratulations to Anthony Williams on that. You know, that is impressive, and again, that's a testament to show with the dedication that a lot of these guys have. With the instigators, we've had two of our guys from tryouts that weren't signed to that active roster initially go to the reserves and then now become a part of the instigators active roster from that reserve squad. So that would obviously be Anthony, and as well as Caleb Magruder. Caleb Magruder is another one of those guys. He impressed throughout the offseason, and he got to the point where we were making some of the final roster decisions here going into the regular season, and he found himself on the active roster there, jumping from that reserve roster to the active roster. But as far as this week goes, we got our other starters there, returning players: JoJo Hart at point, as well as Dylan Ware, another returning player, as well as Chuck Bloom. And another new guy was Malcolm Martin, another guard starting for the Instigators. Top scorers from this week would include Levante Nelson. He is coming off the bench. He had an impressive outing there with 21 points, good defensive effort as well. And he shot well from beyond the arc, 5 of 10. So a good portion of his shots there and led to that 21 points. Tied for second as far as points go, Dylan Ware and Malcolm Martin at 17. Um, and other double digit scores were JoJo Hart at 14, LB, Lawrence Boyd, someone we've seen start off hot for his rookie season at 13 points, and Damian Wilburn with 12 points in that game. And Dame also led the team in assists with 6 assists and 5 steals, also led in steals. And, shout out to him, I believe, as of right now. If you go over to our website, you can, that www.apexofsports.com, go ahead and get yourself some merch. I think as of right now that he may be the top jersey seller for the week at least. So that is shout out to him for that. But that is you take a look at these stats here. As far as player of the week goes, though, that vote was open to all of our fans here over on the Patreon. And we had it between a few guys here. It was between Levante Nelson, JoJo Hart, and Dylan Ware. So again, Levante leading with the 21 points. JoJo Hart again, as always, he's up there with the 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. And then Dylan Ware with the double double, 17 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. And this time, Dylan found himself in front. He won this week's Player of the Week. So congratulations to Dylan Ware. I know last season it took way too long, for us to get Dylan that Player of the Week. A guy that we've seen has been solid week in and week out. Last season, I think AB, kind of dominated that Player of the Week role. But now we've got a Dylan here in this game's Player of the Week, and he'll look to continue that strong effort in this week's matchup against the Kings. Let's jump back real quick here to check out the rest of the league's scores for this past weekend. We had the Indiana Lions take on the Southland Saints. Again, the Saints were number 6 overall on the power rankings, undefeated on the season, going against the Lions, who had a 1 loss against the Maysville Miners. Lions out in front, 104-94. They find themselves handing the Saints their first loss on the season. And the other game there in the division, the Napersville Wise Guys took on the Ohio Kings. That's who we played this week. Kings with a very impressive 192-133 victory. And if we take a look at that Kings roster, as I mentioned before, they've got one player that really stands out from last season, Cameron Mitchell. In just 2 games, he has 94 points. And you may think, well, he's probably just shooting a lot. Well, he is shooting a lot, but he's also making a lot. So 94 points, that's with him shooting almost 90% from the free throw line. He's shooting about 74% for 2-pointers and over 40% from 3. So he's definitely shooting efficiently as well. It's not just he's taking a bunch of shots, he's taking shots and making shots. That's going to be one of those key players to watch in this matchup. against the Ohio Kings tomorrow at the Best Choice Fieldhouse. But we'll stop sharing that screen. So that's a little insight for this game's or tomorrow's matchup in the game. Um, so we've got that game tomorrow. And as always, we have that fans man vote. So fans man, you wonder who was on that for this week? Well, let's start with the active roster for this week's matchup. Active roster for this week's matchup. It's gonna be Malcolm Martin, Chuck Bloom, JoJo Hart, Dylan Ware, AB, LB, Levante, Brandon Smith, Robert Mitchell, Dame, and Joe Bird. So a little bit different. If you've been paying attention to where our roster is compared to last week and the weeks prior, um, we have a couple guys here. Joe Bird returning back to the active roster. He was the fans man a couple of weeks ago. And Robert Mitchell, I believe that's his first time here on the active roster. He's been on the fans man vote just about every week. Brandon Smith, I believe, is also first time here on the active roster. So a couple of additions there. Fans man for this week, though, a big name making his first time on that list for fans man. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. A rookie that we've had some flashes that we've seen from, and a guy that brings a lot of energy in these games. Returning players in that fans man vote. Anthony Williams, he won this past week, and Lance Hopkins. Lance, he was part of that first game, and he's been on that fans man vote, I believe, a couple of times now. This week, though, a lot of votes. Our highest votes total for that fans man. Close vote, too. Very close as far as that goes. But when it's all said and done, it did finish out with our fans man for tomorrow's game. Let's do the big news thing real quick. It's Steve Rogers, Captain America himself. So first time on that vote and first time winning that vote. So we'll see Steve back in action tomorrow for your Hoosier State Instigators. But congrats to Steve for winning the fans man, and thank you to all the fans who did vote this week on the fans man, the 12th man. Every week, you get to decide who will be the final active player for the Hoosier State Instigators. How you can do that is by becoming a fan voter over on the Patreon. So if you're not already a fan voter on the Patreon, go to our Patreon. That's going to be www.patreon.com/Apex Athletic Collective. Once you go there, become a subscriber. And if you subscribe to the fan voter or higher tier, that's a $10 tier or higher, you will have the opportunity to vote every week on that final roster spot, the fans man, the 12th man for your Hoosier State Instigators. Now, if you don't want to be on that $10 monthly plan and you just want to vote one time, you got a player that you really want to put your vote in for, well, here's an option for you. You can also buy access to vote just on this specific vote. It's $3. So you can do that as well. Another cool thing we just noticed on our Patreon is you can now gift subscriptions. So with the holidays coming up, you got another Instigators fan. You want them to see all this live content here. Well, give them a subscription. They'll be able to watch all these games live, all the podcasts here live, get early access to everything. You want them to be able to vote on the fans, man. Get them the fan voter tier for the holiday season. Give them that gift of voting. And not only have we seen our fans vote on the Fans Man Weekly, but we have had votes throughout the offseason. I mean, when it comes to the offseason, we've had votes on what are going to be our home and away jerseys, even player evaluations. There's a bunch of things that everybody gets to vote on at that fan voter and higher tier. So thank you to everybody who did participate and voted for Steve in uh, for that fans man. We'll see him back on the court. I'll see him on court tomorrow. But he is, a bright rookie that we've seen flashes from. So definitely a guy that is capable of making some plays. And we've seen our fans man on all of these games get action in playing time in the games. So it is an important vote. It's not just you're voting for the last guy on the bench. You are literally voting for a player that will be playing in the game, and they can have a pivotal role in the game as well. This past week's fans man, Anthony Williams, he started the game. He won that tip off. So that is a very important vote every week for your Hoosier State Instigators. But congrats again to Steve, and thank you to the fans that voted him in for this week's Fans Man. Again, we'll have that vote up again next week, as well as our Player of the Week votes. So if you want to be a part of that next week, be sure to subscribe for that vote. But looking at the future, so we've got that game against the Kings tomorrow. Then we wrap up that 3-game home stretch next week against the Pipples. Then we go on the road against the same exact team. We'll play the Pipples back-to-back weeks. I think that'll be a great week of self-evaluation between those two matchups. Then to wrap up our 2024 part of the season, we'll be back at home against the Legends and then the Fury, the defending champions. Again, that's also going to be a game that everybody has circled on their calendars. And then we play to end the year, not the season, but end the year. We play the Wizards, the team that we just lost to. So hopefully we avenge that on the road, December 28th. Then we'll jump back into the season once New Year's hits the ground with 2 home games and then a few stretches of road games. So we'll have a 3-game road trip. Then February 1st, we'll return back home to play the Kings again. Then we'll go on the road for 4 games and wrap up our season at home against the Miners. So if you are a Fishers native or in the local area, even if you're somebody who wants to travel, say, I don't know, from Florida, and you feel like going up there to see the Instigators tomorrow, uh, obviously, I'm talking about myself, but anybody that's interested in getting those tickets, you can get your tickets and get tickets here for our home games at Best Choice Fieldhouse in Fishers, Indiana. But we've got that home stretch. We got the 3-game home stretch here. We're going to be in that middle of it, the second game this week, tomorrow. Then we have that last home stretch game, 1 road game. Then we have a few more games. We got 4 more games. 5 if you count. Well, yeah, we'll have four more home games after Thanksgiving before before we go on that road stretch. So that is what we're looking at. So we'll have these 3 games before Thanksgiving. Then we'll be on the road. Then we come back at home for a couple of games before the holidays. Then we'll have a road game, 2 more home games, road games, and then the long stretch of road games there. But so if you are trying to make it out to some of these home games, plan on trying to make it out to some of these games earlier in the season. We continue to build that atmosphere at the Best Choice Fieldhouse, and we really wish to see you there and welcome everybody, and are thankful to all of the fans that have been coming out to all the home games here at Best Choice Fieldhouse. Again, that is an amazing venue. I really look forward to being there tomorrow night. And we've got that tip off in less than 24 hours. We'll be playing against the Ohio Kings. tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Again, Best Choice Fieldhouse in Fishers, Indiana. The Kings are an impressive team. They went undefeated regular season last season, so definitely somebody we've got on the radar. And well, it'll be interesting to see. This will be, yeah, this will be my first time seeing Cam Mitchell play in person. So we'll have to see if the Instigators are able to limit him, or even if they're able to limit the rest of the team to find themselves victorious. So that's what we've got coming up tomorrow night. But again, I did give the heads up. This will be a little bit of abbreviated, not a full length, but not not a short Instigate success for this week's podcast. But that is going to do it for tonight's episode. If you're watching that fight, hopefully you guys get to enjoy that. I'll be watching it for the most part, but I'll also be packing and maybe trying to get some sleep before I have to go out on that flight. But I'll be there tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. You can be there live. Catch it in person at Best Choice Fieldhouse. Get your tickets in advance at apexofsports.com, or you can buy them at the venue as well. And we'll also have exclusive merchandise at the venue. So I'll probably do a little bit of like that vlog thing again. Maybe try to edit a little bit more so we have like a full length thing. But we'll show off some of that exclusive stuff that you can get at those home games. And if you're not able to make it out there, catch the game live on stream for all of our loyal Patreon subscribers. And then following week, we'll be putting that out on YouTube with some commentary and added graphics and such. Thank you again for joining us tonight on Instigate Success. As always, I'm your host, Jake Schoen, aka Jakey Muffins. Until next time, as always, be great and instigate